As he walked past the seamstress, the billionaire saw the same necklace he had given his daughter. It was an ordinary day in many ways for Mr. Harrison Kane, a man whose life revolved around numbers, deals, and power suits. But something small and seemingly insignificant stopped him cold. He paused outside a modest shop tucked between a bakery and a bookstore. The sign above the door read Lila's Tailoring, written in faded gold letters. Through the window, he caught sight of a glimmer, a delicate pendant hanging on a velvet stand inside the shop. His heart skipped a beat. That necklace. It couldn't be real. Could it? Harrison wasn't one to believe in coincidences. At 58 years old, he had built his empire by trusting facts over feelings. But this was different. The pendant was shaped like a crescent moon, encrusted with tiny sapphires that shimmered even under the dim light of the shop. It was identical to the heirloom he had gifted his daughter Emily on her 16th birthday. The memory hit him hard, like a punch to the chest. He could still picture her face lighting up when she opened the velvet box, the way her blue eyes sparkled brighter than the gemstones themselves. She had worn it every single day until the accident. For years, Harrison had tried to bury those memories. After losing Emily, he locked away everything that reminded him of her. The photographs, the letters, even the duplicate necklace he had commissioned as a backup in case the original ever got lost or damaged. Yet here it was, now staring back at him from behind a dusty glass case. How could this be possible? Was someone trying to sell a replica? Or was there more to the story? Unable to shake off the feeling that something wasn't right, Harrison pushed open the door to the seamstress shop. A bell jingled softly overhead, announcing his arrival. Inside, the air smelled faintly of lavender and thread. Shelves lined the walls, stacked high with fabrics in every color imaginable. Mannequins stood in various corners, draped in half-finished dresses and blouses. Behind a sewing machine sat a young woman with dark curls tied loosely at the nape of her neck. Her name tag read Lila. She looked up as Harrison entered, startled by the imposing figure standing in the doorway. "Excuse me," Harrison said, his voice steady but laced with urgency. He pointed toward the display case. "That necklace. Where did you get it?" Lila blinked, surprised by the question. "Oh, She glanced at the pendant, then back at him. "It belongs to my grandmother. She gave it to me when I turned 16. "Why do you ask?" Harrison took a step closer, his sharp gaze fixed on the necklace. "Because that piece is very important to me. Or rather, it used to belong to someone close to me." Lila frowned, clearly confused. "I'm sorry, I don't understand. Are you saying it's stolen?" "No," Harrison replied quickly. "Not stolen, just unexpected." He hesitated before continuing. "That necklace, it's a family heirloom. I gave one exactly like it to my daughter years ago. Seeing it here?" He trailed off, unable to put his emotions into words. Seeing the sincerity in his eyes, Lila nodded slowly. "Let me get it for you," she said, unlocking the display case. She carefully lifted the necklace out and handed it to him. Harrison examined it closely, running his fingers over the intricate engravings on the back. A crescent moon surrounded by stars. His stomach churned. These weren't generic designs. They were unique to the original piece. There was no doubt about it. This was either the actual necklace he had given Emily or an impossibly accurate copy. "Who made this?" Harrison asked, his tone sharper than he intended. "Do you know where your grandmother got it?" Lila shook her head. "I don't think she mentioned it, but if you want, I can ask her. She's usually here in the afternoons." Harrison nodded, though his mind was racing. Who was this grandmother? And how had she come to possess something so personal? For a moment, he considered leaving, brushing the whole thing off as some bizarre coincidence. But something deep inside told him not to walk away. Not yet. "I'd appreciate that," he said finally. "Can we arrange a meeting?" "Of course," Lila replied, though her expression betrayed her unease. She scribbled down her phone number and promised to call him once she spoke with her grandmother. As Harrison left the shop, the weight of unanswered questions pressed heavily on his shoulders. What had started as a simple stroll through unfamiliar streets had turned into something far more complicated and potentially life-altering. Over the next few days, Harrison found himself thinking about the necklace constantly. Memories of Emily flooded his mind, each one bittersweet. He remembered teaching her how to ride a bike, watching her graduate from middle school, and arguing with her over curfews. Their relationship hadn't always been perfect. In fact, their last conversation had ended in anger, but he had loved her fiercely. Losing her had shattered him in ways he still struggled to repair. When Lila finally called to set up a meeting with her grandmother, Harrison agreed immediately. He arrived at the shop early the following morning, dressed in a tailored suit despite knowing it might seem excessive for such a casual setting. Lila greeted him warmly and led him to the back room, where an elderly woman sat knitting by the window. Her hair was silver, pulled back into a neat bun, and her hands moved deftly with the needles. When she looked up, her warm brown eyes met Harrison's, and he felt an odd sense of familiarity. "This is my grandmother, Rosa Alvarez," Lila introduced. "Abuela, this is Mr. Kane. He has some questions about the necklace." Rosa set her knitting aside and gestured for Harrison to take a seat. "You're wondering how I came to have it, yes?" she asked, her voice soft but steady. "Yes," Harrison replied, leaning forward slightly. "It's complicated. That necklace belonged to my daughter. She passed away several years ago, and finding it here, it's raised a lot of questions." Rosa studied him for a long moment before speaking. "Your daughter, did she run away from home?" The question caught Harrison off guard. "Run away? No, she didn't. She died in a car accident." Rosa shook her head gently. "I'm afraid that might not be true." Harrison's blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" With a sigh, Rosa began to explain. Several years earlier, a teenage girl matching Emily's description had shown up at her doorstep, distraught and carrying little more than the clothes on her back. The girl claimed to have fled her home after a heated argument with her father. Though details were sparse, Rosa remembered the girl wearing the necklace and mentioning it was a gift from her father, a symbol of love and regret. Moved by the girl's plight, Rosa offered her shelter for a few nights before helping her find work elsewhere. Harrison listened in stunned silence. If what Rosa said was true, then everything he thought he knew about Emily's death was a lie. Could it be possible that she hadn't died in the accident? Had she run away instead? And if so, why had no one told him the truth? By the time he left the shop, Harrison's mind was reeling. One thing was certain: he needed answers. No matter what it took, he was determined to uncover the truth about his daughter and the mysterious necklace that had brought him here. After leaving Lila's shop, Harrison Kane couldn't shake the unease that had settled deep in his chest. The story Rosa Alvarez had shared was both shocking and unsettling, but it also planted a seed of hope, a fragile, flickering possibility that Emily might still be alive. For years he had mourned her death, believing she was gone forever. Now, faced with the idea that she could have run away instead, he felt a confusing mix of emotions: guilt, anger, and a desperate longing to find her. Harrison knew he couldn't tackle this alone. He needed help, someone who could dig deeper into the past and uncover the truth. That evening, he called one of the best private investigators in the city, a man named Victor Lang. Known for his meticulous attention to detail and unyielding persistence, Victor had solved cases that others deemed impossible. When Harrison explained the situation, the necklace, Rosa's account, and his suspicions about Emily's disappearance, Victor agreed to take on the case without hesitation. "I'll do whatever it takes," he promised, sensing the urgency in Harrison's voice. Over the next few weeks, Harrison threw himself into the investigation. Every lead, no matter how small, became a lifeline. He spent hours poring over old photographs, letters, and documents related to Emily's life. He even revisited the site of the supposed car accident, though it brought back painful memories. The official report stated that Emily had been driving home late at night when her car skidded off a rain-slicked road and plunged into a river. Her body was never found, which at the time was attributed to the strong currents sweeping it away. But now Harrison wondered if there was another explanation. Victor worked tirelessly, tracing every possible connection to Emily's last known whereabouts. He interviewed neighbors, teachers, and friends from her school days, piecing together fragments of information. Some recalled seeing Emily arguing with her father shortly before she disappeared, while others mentioned rumors of her wanting to leave town. One classmate even claimed Emily once confided in her about feeling suffocated by her father's strict rules and high expectations. Each new detail painted a clearer picture of a young girl struggling to find her place in a world that seemed determined to control her. Meanwhile, Harrison grew closer to Lila, who continued to assist him in reviewing documents and organizing leads. Their bond developed naturally, born out of shared purpose and mutual respect. Lila admired Harrison's determination to reconnect with his daughter, while Harrison appreciated Lila's kindness and sharp intuition. She often reminded him to stay patient, urging him not to lose hope even when progress seemed slow. "The truth is out there," she would say. "We just have to keep looking." As the weeks turned into months, the investigation began to yield results. Victor discovered that a teenage girl matching Emily's description had been spotted hitchhiking along a highway shortly after the alleged accident. Witnesses described her as distraught but determined, carrying nothing more than a backpack and wearing a distinctive crescent moon necklace. Surveillance footage from nearby gas stations confirmed her presence, though the quality of the images made identification difficult. Still, it was enough to fuel Harrison's resolve. One day, while going through boxes of old belongings stored in his attic, Harrison stumbled upon something unexpected: a letter written in Emily's handwriting. It was dated just days before her disappearance and addressed to him. His hands trembled as he unfolded the paper, bracing himself for what it might say. In simple, heartfelt words, Emily expressed her frustration with their strained relationship, but also her love for him. "Dad," she wrote, "I know we don't always see eye to eye, but I want you to know I care about you. I wish things were different between us, but maybe someday they will be. Until then, please remember that I'm trying my best." The note ended with a plea. "Please don't give up on me." Tears blurred Harrison's vision as he read the letter over and over again. Guilt washed over him like a tidal wave. He had been so focused on shaping Emily into the person he wanted her to be that he hadn't taken the time to truly understand her. Their arguments had driven her away, and now he feared he might never get the chance to make amends. Clutching the letter tightly, he vowed to himself, and to Emily, that he wouldn't stop searching until he found her. Victor soon uncovered another crucial lead: a woman living under an assumed name in a small coastal town several hundred miles away. According to locals, she worked at a cafe and kept mostly to herself. Photos obtained by Victor showed a striking resemblance to Emily, though the woman appeared older and wearier. Could this really be her? Harrison's heart raced at the thought. After all these years, could he finally be close to finding his daughter? Before confronting her, Harrison decided to gather more evidence. He didn't want to risk scaring her off or making assumptions based on incomplete information. With Victor's help, he arranged for discreet surveillance to confirm her identity. Days passed agonizingly slowly, each one filled with anticipation and doubt. What if it wasn't her? What if she rejected him? The questions swirled endlessly in his mind, keeping him awake at night. Finally, the confirmation came. The woman in the photos was indeed Emily Kane, or at least someone who matched her description perfectly. Armed with this knowledge, Harrison prepared for the most important journey of his life. He packed lightly, bringing only the essentials: clothes, the duplicate necklace, and Emily's letter. As he stood outside his mansion, ready to leave, he felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. This trip wasn't just about finding answers. It was about redemption, for himself, for Emily, and for the fractured relationship they had left behind. The drive to the coastal town took hours, but Harrison barely noticed the passage of time. His thoughts were consumed by memories of Emily and the countless what-ifs that had haunted him for years. What if he had listened to her instead of yelling? What if he had given her space instead of pushing her harder? What if he had told her how much she meant to him before it was too late? When he arrived, the town was quiet and picturesque, its streets lined with quaint cottages and flower-filled gardens. Following Victor's directions, Harrison parked outside a modest house nestled near the cliffs overlooking the ocean. His pulse quickened as he approached the front door. Taking a deep breath, he knocked softly, unsure of what awaited him on the other side. Moments later, the door creaked open, revealing a woman who looked both familiar and foreign. Her hair was longer now, streaked with strands of gold from years spent in the sun. There were faint lines around her eyes, signs of hardships endured, but her gaze remained steady and intelligent. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, recognition dawned in her expression, and her hand flew to her mouth. "Emily," Harrison whispered, his voice trembling. She stared at him, tears welling in her eyes. "Dad." In that instant, the years of separation melted away. They embraced, holding on to each other as though afraid to let go. Words failed them at first, replaced by sobs of relief and regret. Slowly, they began to talk, sharing pieces of their lives since the day they parted ways. Emily explained why. She had run away, the pressure, the arguments, the overwhelming feeling of being trapped, and admitted that she had faked her disappearance with Rosa's help. She hadn't meant to hurt anyone, only to escape a life that felt suffocating. For Harrison, hearing her story was both heartbreaking and humbling. He realized how much pain he had caused, not just to Emily, but to himself. "I'm so sorry," he said, his voice choked with emotion. "I failed you, sweetheart. I should have been there for you, not against you." Emily shook her head gently. "It wasn't all your fault, Dad. I made mistakes too. But maybe we can start over?" Harrison nodded, tears streaming down his face. "Yes, let's start over." Their reunion marked the beginning of a long road to healing, but for the first time in years, Harrison felt hopeful. He had found his daughter, not through wealth or power, but through perseverance and love. And in doing so, he had rediscovered the part of himself he thought he'd lost forever. The reunion between Harrison Kane and his daughter Emily was far from perfect. It was raw, emotional, and filled with moments of both joy and pain. For years they had lived separate lives, each carrying their own burdens and regrets. Now, standing face to face in the quiet coastal town where Emily had built a new life for herself, they were forced to confront everything that had driven them apart. The scars of the past weren't going to disappear overnight, but both father and daughter knew this was their chance to heal, to start over. Emily invited Harrison inside her cottage, which was small but cozy, decorated with seashells, paintings of ocean waves, and handmade quilts. The scent of salt water lingered in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of freshly brewed tea. As they sat across from each other at the kitchen table, an awkward silence settled between them. Neither knew where to begin. Harrison clutched the duplicate necklace tightly in his hand, while Emily fidgeted with the hem of her sweater, avoiding his gaze. Finally, Harrison broke the silence. "I don't even know where to start," he admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "I've spent so many years thinking you were gone, dead, and now here you are, alive." Emily nodded slowly, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I didn't mean to hurt anyone," she said softly. "But I couldn't stay anymore, Dad, I just couldn't. Everything felt like it was closing in on me, the rules, the expectations, the arguments. I needed to breathe." Harrison swallowed hard, guilt weighing heavily on his chest. "I see that now," he replied. "But back then, I was blind. All I cared about was shaping you into the person I thought you should be. I never stopped to ask what you wanted, what you needed." Emily looked at him then, really looked at him, and saw the sincerity in his eyes. She had spent years imagining this moment, fantasizing about telling him how much his actions had hurt her. But now that it was happening, she found herself struggling to put her feelings into words. Instead, she reached out and placed a hand over his. "It wasn't all your fault," she said gently. I ran because I didn't know how to fix things between us. I thought leaving would make everything easier, for both of us. But it didn't? Harrison interjected, his voice trembling. It tore me apart, Emily. Losing you. It destroyed me. I threw myself into work, into building my empire, because I didn't know how to deal with the pain. But no amount of money or success could fill the void you left behind. They talked for hours, sharing stories of their lives since the day Emily disappeared. Harrison spoke about the loneliness he had endured, the sleepless nights spent wondering if he could have done something differently. He confessed that he had locked away every reminder of her, unable to face the memories without breaking down. Emily, in turn, shared her journey after leaving home, how Rosa Alvarez had taken her in, how she had worked odd jobs to support herself, and how she eventually found solace in the simplicity of coastal living. I changed my name, Emily explained. To protect myself, I guess. I was scared someone might find me and drag me back to a life I didn't want. But over time, I realized I couldn't keep running forever. I had to face who I was, and who I wanted to become. Harrison listened intently, marveling at the strength and resilience his daughter had shown. She was no longer the rebellious teenager he remembered. She was a grown woman with dreams, fears, and a wisdom that came from surviving hardships. He felt a surge of pride mixed with regret. How had he missed seeing this side of her before? As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting golden hues across the room, Emily stood up and walked to a wooden chest in the corner. Opening it, she pulled out a familiar velvet box, the original crescent moon necklace. She held it out to Harrison, her hands shaking slightly. I kept this, she said. Even when I tried to leave everything else behind, I couldn't let go of this. It reminded me of the good times, of how much you loved me, even if we didn't always show it. Harrison took the box, his fingers brushing against hers. He opened it carefully, revealing the necklace that had sparked this entire journey. Seeing it again brought tears to his eyes. Do you still wear it? He asked. Emily shook her head. Not anymore. It's too tied to the past. But I couldn't throw it away either. It's part of who I am. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of their shared history hung in the air, heavy yet somehow comforting. They had both made mistakes, but they were here now, alive, together, and willing to try again. Over the next few days, Harrison stayed in Emily's cottage, determined to rebuild their relationship brick by brick. They spent their mornings walking along the beach, talking about everything and nothing. In the afternoons, they cooked meals together, laughing as they attempted recipes neither of them had mastered. At night, they sat by the fire, sharing stories of happier times and dreaming of what the future might hold. During one of these evenings, Emily brought up a question that had been lingering in her mind. Why did you come looking for me now? She asked. After all these years, why didn't you give up? Harrison hesitated, searching for the right words. Because of the necklace, he said finally. Seeing it in that seamstress shop, it reminded me of you, of the love we once shared. I realized I couldn't keep pretending you were gone. I needed to know the truth, no matter how painful it might be. Emily smiled, a bittersweet expression that tugged at Harrison's heart. I'm glad you did, she said. I've missed you, Dad. More than I ever let myself admit. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, but Harrison knew there was still work to be done. He understood that earning Emily's trust wouldn't happen overnight. He had to prove to her that he was different, that he was willing to listen, to support her dreams, and to accept her for who she truly was. For the first time in years, he felt purposeful, not as a billionaire or a businessman, but as a father. Meanwhile, back in the city, Lila continued to play a vital role in Harrison's life. Though she hadn't accompanied him to the coastal town, she remained a constant source of encouragement and guidance. They spoke regularly on the phone, discussing updates and sharing thoughts about the progress of his reconciliation with Emily. Lila's unwavering optimism helped keep Harrison grounded during moments of doubt. You're doing the right thing, she told him during one of their calls. Healing takes time, but you're laying the foundation for something beautiful. Don't rush it. Harrison appreciated her advice more than she realized. Over the months, their friendship had deepened, evolving into something neither of them had anticipated. While Harrison was focused on reconnecting with Emily, he couldn't deny the warmth and comfort Lila brought to his life. She reminded him of the importance of kindness, patience, and second chances, qualities he hoped to embody moving forward. Eventually, Emily agreed to visit Harrison's estate in the city. It was a daunting prospect for her, returning to the place where so many painful memories resided, but she trusted her father enough to take the leap. When they arrived, Harrison gave her a tour of the sprawling mansion, pointing out changes he had made since her departure. One room in particular caught her attention, a library filled with books, photographs, and mementos from her childhood. It was clear that Harrison had poured his heart into preserving their shared history. "This is amazing," Emily said, running her fingers over the spines of old storybooks they used to read together. "I didn't think you'd remember all this." "Of course I remembered," Harrison replied, smiling softly. "These are the moments that mattered most to me. I just wish I had appreciated them more when you were here." As weeks turned into months, Emily gradually reintegrated into her father's world. She began working alongside him in his company, bringing fresh ideas and perspectives that revitalized the business. Her creativity and passion inspired those around her, including Harrison, who marveled at the woman she had become. Together, they forged a partnership built on mutual respect and understanding, a stark contrast to the strained dynamic they had once shared. Through it all, Harrison never forgot the role Lila had played in bringing him and Emily back together. He invited her to join them for dinner one evening, eager to express his gratitude. Over candlelight and laughter, the three of them reflected on the journey that had led them to this point. Lila's presence added a sense of completeness to the evening, as though fate itself had orchestrated their paths crossing. By the end of the night, Harrison found himself reflecting on how much his life had changed. What had started as a simple stroll past a seamstress shop had transformed into a profound lesson about love, forgiveness, and redemption. He had lost his daughter once, only to find her again, not through wealth or power, but through humility and perseverance. And in the process, he had rediscovered parts of himself he thought were lost forever. As he watched Emily laugh with Lila, Harrison felt a deep sense of peace. The road ahead wouldn't always be easy, but for the first time in years he felt hopeful. He had his daughter back, and with her, a renewed sense of purpose. No amount of money or success could compare to the treasure he held in his heart now, a second chance at being the father Emily deserved. As the weeks turned into months, Harrison Kane and his daughter Emily continued to rebuild their relationship. It was a delicate process, requiring patience, understanding, and countless conversations that often veered between laughter and tears. For Emily, returning to her father's world felt like stepping into unfamiliar territory. The mansion she had grown up in was no longer just a symbol of wealth. It had become a place where memories were being rewritten, one moment at a time. And for Harrison, every shared meal, every walk through the gardens, and every late-night talk brought him closer to the daughter he thought he'd lost forever. One evening, as they sat together on the veranda overlooking the sprawling estate, Emily broached a topic that had been weighing on her mind. "Dad," she began hesitantly, "do you think people can really change? Like, truly change?" Harrison looked at her, surprised by the question. He set down his cup of tea and leaned back in his chair, considering his response carefully. "I think it depends," he said finally. "Some people get stuck in their ways, unwilling to see beyond what they already know. But others, when faced with something life-altering, they have no choice but to adapt." "Why do you ask?" Emily sighed, tracing patterns on the wooden railing with her fingertips. "Because I've spent so much time running away from who I used to be, the girl who argued with you, who felt trapped, who made mistakes. I don't want to be defined by those things anymore, but sometimes I wonder if it's possible to leave them behind completely." Harrison reached out and placed a hand on hers, his touch warm and steady. You're not alone in feeling that way, he admitted. I've spent years carrying guilt over how I treated you. Every decision I made back then, every argument, every demand, it feels like I was trying to control you instead of guiding you. I wasn't the father you needed, Emily, but I'm here now, and I'm doing everything I can to be better. His words struck a chord deep within Emily. She realized that both of them were grappling with similar struggles, the desire to move forward while still reckoning with the past. Maybe we don't have to leave it all behind, she suggested, softly. Maybe we can learn from it instead. Use it to make us stronger. Harrison nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of his mouth. That sounds like a good plan. Their bond continued to grow stronger with each passing day. Emily began working alongside her father in his company, bringing fresh ideas and innovative strategies that revitalized the business. Her creativity and passion inspired those around her, including Harrison, who marveled at the woman she had become. Together, they forged a partnership built on mutual respect and understanding, a stark contrast to the strained dynamic they had once shared. Lila, too, remained an integral part of their lives. Though she lived in the city and worked at her seamstress shop, she often visited the estate, joining Harrison and Emily for meals, or simply spending time catching up. Her presence added a sense of balance to their newfound family dynamic. Lila's optimism and kindness served as a reminder of the importance of forgiveness and second chances, qualities that Harrison hoped to embody moving forward. One afternoon, as they strolled through the gardens, Lila turned to Harrison and asked, "Do you ever think about writing your story? About everything that's happened?" Harrison raised an eyebrow, intrigued by the idea. "My story?" he repeated. "What would I say? That I nearly lost my daughter because I was too blind to see what mattered most?" Lila shook her head. "No. You'd say that you found her again. That you learned to listen, to love differently, and to let go of the things that didn't matter. Your story isn't just about loss, it's about redemption. And trust me, there are people who need to hear it." The thought lingered in Harrison's mind long after their conversation ended. He had always prided himself on being a man of action, someone who led by example rather than words. But perhaps Lila was right. Perhaps sharing his journey could inspire others to seek reconciliation in their own lives. With Emily's encouragement, Harrison decided to write a memoir chronicling his experiences, from the early days of building his empire to the painful years following Emily's disappearance and finally, to their reunion. Writing proved to be cathartic, allowing him to reflect on his mistakes and celebrate the progress he and Emily had made together. Each chapter was a testament to the power of love, resilience, and forgiveness. When the book was finally published, it became an unexpected success. Readers connected deeply with Harrison's raw honesty and vulnerability. Letters poured in from parents and children alike, thanking him for reminding them that it's never too late to mend broken relationships. Emily, too, found solace in knowing that their story had touched so many lives. But even as their fame grew, Harrison and Emily remained grounded. They continued to prioritize their relationship above all else, cherishing the moments they spent together. Whether it was cooking breakfast in the kitchen, taking long drives along the countryside, or simply sitting in silence watching the sunset, they found joy in the simplicity of being present for one another. One day, as they stood side by side on the cliffs overlooking the ocean, Emily turned to her father and said, "Do you remember when you first came to my cottage? How nervous you looked standing outside my door." Harrison chuckled, the memory vivid in his mind. "Of course I remember. I was terrified, to be honest. Terrified that you wouldn't forgive me. Terrified that I'd ruined everything. But you didn't," Emily replied, smiling warmly. "You fought for us, Dad. Even when it seemed impossible, you kept going. And because of that, we're here now." Harrison wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "We're lucky, Emily. We got a second chance, a rare gift. Not everyone gets that." They stood there for a while, watching the waves crash against the rocks below. The wind carried the scent of salt water and wildflowers, filling the air with a sense of peace. For Harrison, This moment encapsulated everything he had been searching for all these years: connection, love, and a renewed sense of purpose. Back in the city, Lila read a copy of Harrison's memoir, tears streaming down her face as she flipped through its pages. She had played a small but significant role in bringing father and daughter back together, and seeing the impact of their journey filled her with pride. When Harrison called to thank her once again, she simply said, "This is your victory, Harrison. You earned it." As time went on, Harrison, Emily, and Lila formed a unique kind of family, one bound not by blood but by shared experiences and unconditional support. They celebrated holidays together, traveled to new places, and created memories that would last a lifetime. Through it all, Harrison never forgot the lessons he had learned: that wealth and power mean nothing without love, that forgiveness is a two-way street, and that sometimes the smallest gestures, a necklace, a letter, a conversation, can lead to the greatest transformations. And so, the billionaire who once walked past a seamstress shop with nothing more than curiosity ended up rediscovering the most precious gift of all: a second chance at being the father his daughter deserved. Their story was proof that even the deepest wounds can heal with time, effort, and love. The months following the publication of Harrison Kane's memoir marked a turning point, not just for him and Emily, but for everyone whose lives had been touched by their story. The book became more than just a personal account of loss and redemption. It sparked conversations across communities about the importance of communication, forgiveness, and second chances. For Harrison, this newfound platform was both humbling and empowering. He had always thought of himself as a man defined by his wealth and influence, but now he realized that true legacy lay in the connections we nurture and the lives we touch. Harrison and Emily embraced their role as advocates for reconciliation, often speaking at events and conferences about the power of healing fractured relationships. Their presentations were raw and heartfelt, filled with anecdotes from their own journey. They spoke candidly about the mistakes they had made, the arguments, the misunderstandings, and the years spent apart, and how they had worked tirelessly to rebuild trust. Audiences listened intently, many moved to tears by the honesty and vulnerability they shared. One evening, after delivering a speech at a community center in the city, a young woman approached them hesitantly. Her name was Clara, and she explained that she had run away from home at 16 after a falling out with her parents. "Your story gave me hope," she said, her voice trembling. "I've been thinking about reaching out to my mom and dad, but I don't know if they'll forgive me." Emily exchanged a glance with Harrison before stepping forward. "Forgiveness isn't something you can force," she said gently. "But what you can do is take the first step. Let them know you're ready to try again. Sometimes that's all it takes." Clara nodded, clutching a copy of Harrison's memoir tightly to her chest. "Thank you," she whispered before walking away. Moments like these reminded Harrison and Emily why they had chosen to share their story. It wasn't just about them. It was about inspiring others to seek healing in their own lives. Back at the estate, life continued to evolve in meaningful ways. Emily had taken on a leadership role within Harrison's company, spearheading initiatives aimed at supporting underprivileged youth. She believed strongly in giving back to the community, especially to those who felt unseen or unheard. One of her proudest achievements was launching a mentorship program that paired teenagers with professionals in various fields. "Everyone deserves someone who believes in them," she told Harrison one day. "If I hadn't met Rosa, I might never have found the courage to start over." Rosa Alvarez herself had become an honorary member of their extended family. Though she lived far away in her little seamstress shop, Harrison and Emily visited her regularly, bringing updates and sharing stories about their progress. Rosa, ever wise and kind, offered guidance whenever they needed it. "Life is full of second chances," she would say, "but it's up to us to recognize them when they come." Lila, too, remained a cherished part of their lives. Over time, her friendship with Harrison deepened into something neither of them had anticipated: While Harrison was focused on reconnecting with Emily, he couldn't deny the warmth and comfort Lila brought to his life. She reminded him of the importance of kindness, patience, and humility, qualities he hoped to embody moving forward. For Lila, Harrison represented stability and strength, qualities she admired deeply. Their bond grew stronger during quiet moments spent together, sipping tea in the garden, discussing books they had read, or simply enjoying each other's company, without the need for words. One evening as they sat by the fireplace, Lila turned to Harrison and asked, "Do you ever think about what might have happened if you hadn't walked past my shop that day?" Harrison smiled, reflecting on the question. "I think about it. All the time," he admitted. "That necklace, it changed everything. Not just for me and Emily, but for all of us. If I hadn't seen it, I might still be living in denial, convinced that there was no way to fix things." "And now?" Lila prompted. "Now," Harrison replied, his voice soft but resolute. "I know that even the smallest actions can lead to the biggest transformations. That day wasn't just fate. It was a reminder that we're all connected, whether we realize it or not." As spring gave way to summer, Harrison decided to host a gathering at the estate to celebrate the positive changes in their lives. Friends, colleagues, and acquaintances came together under twinkling string lights strung across the gardens. There was laughter, music, and plenty of heartfelt speeches. At one point, Emily stood up to address the crowd. "I want to thank each and every one of you for being here tonight," she began, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes. "This isn't just a celebration of where we are now. It's a tribute to how far we've come. My dad and I didn't get here alone. We had help, from Rosa, from Lila, and from so many others who believed in us when we struggled to believe in ourselves. So tonight, let's raise a toast to second chances, to forgiveness, and to the people who remind us that love is worth fighting for." The guests erupted into applause, raising their glasses high. Harrison watched proudly as Emily returned to her seat, feeling a swell of gratitude for the woman she had become. Gone was the rebellious teenager who had once clashed with him at every turn. In her place was a compassionate, driven individual who inspired everyone around her, including him. Later that night, as the party wound down and the stars emerged, overhead, Harrison found himself standing alone on the balcony overlooking the gardens. Lila joined him shortly afterward, carrying 2 cups of hot cocoa. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, handing him one of the mugs. Harrison chuckled softly. "Just thinking about how much has changed," he said. "A year ago, I was lost. Angry at myself, angry at the world. Now, I feel like I finally understand what matters most." "And what's that?" Lila asked curiously. "Family," Harrison replied without hesitation. "Not just blood relatives, but the people who stand by you through thick and thin. You, Emily, Rosa. Even strangers like Clara who remind me why our story matters. All of you are my family now." Lila smiled, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "I'm glad I'm part of it," she said quietly. "You've taught me a lot, Harrison. About resilience, about love, and about finding beauty in imperfection." The moment lingered between them, filled with unspoken understanding. Neither needed to say more. They knew they had formed a bond that would endure whatever challenges lay ahead. In the weeks that followed, Harrison and Emily continued to build on the foundation they had created. They traveled together, explored new hobbies, and supported each other's dreams. Emily's mentorship program flourished, earning recognition from local organizations and media outlets. Harrison, meanwhile, used his resources to fund scholarships for young entrepreneurs, ensuring that future generations would have opportunities to succeed. Through it all, they remained committed to spreading their message of hope and healing. Whether it was through public speaking engagements, charitable work, or simply lending an ear to someone in need, they dedicated themselves to making a difference. Their story served as a beacon of light for countless individuals struggling to mend broken relationships or find their place in the world. And yet, amidst all the accolades and achievements, Harrison never lost sight of what truly mattered. Every morning as he woke up to the sound of birds chirping outside his window, He reminded himself of how blessed he was to have Emily back in his life. Every evening as they sat together watching the sunset, he expressed his gratitude, not just for the present moment, but for the journey that had brought them here. By the end of the year, Harrison and Emily had transformed not only their own lives but also the lives of those around them. Their story was proof that even the deepest wounds can heal with time, effort, and love. It was a testament to the power of forgiveness, the importance of second chances, and the enduring strength of familial bonds. As Harrison looked out at the horizon one final time, he felt a profound sense of peace. He had started this journey as a man searching for answers, but he ended it as someone who had found purpose. His empire no longer defined him. Instead, it was the love he shared with Emily and the lessons they had learned along the way that shaped his legacy. For the billionaire who once walked past a seamstress shop with nothing more than curiosity, life had come full circle. What had begun as a fleeting glimpse of a familiar necklace had blossomed into a lifetime of connection, growth, and redemption. And in the end, that was the greatest gift of all. As the years rolled on, Harrison Kane's life transformed in ways he could never have imagined. The billionaire who once measured success by stock prices and boardroom victories now found fulfillment in simpler, more profound moments. His mornings began with quiet reflection, often spent sipping coffee on the veranda while watching the sunrise. These peaceful hours allowed him to appreciate how far he and Emily had come, and how much they still had to look forward to. Emily, too, had grown into a remarkable woman. Her work with underprivileged youth had expanded beyond the mentorship program she started. It evolved into a nationwide initiative called Pathways, which provided resources, scholarships, and support for young people seeking better futures. Emily's passion and determination inspired everyone around her, including Harrison, who proudly supported her efforts financially and emotionally. Together, they proved that true wealth wasn't measured in dollars, but in the lives they touched. 1. Crisp autumn morning as golden leaves swirled in the breeze, Harrison received an unexpected letter. It was from Clara, the young woman who had approached them after one of their speaking engagements. In neat handwriting, she wrote about reconnecting with her parents and beginning the difficult process of rebuilding their relationship. "Your story gave me the courage to try again," she said. "We're not perfect yet, but we're working on it. Thank you for showing me that second chances are possible." Harrison read the letter aloud to Emily during breakfast. Tears welled up in her eyes as she listened. "This is why we do what we do," she said softly. "It's not just about us anymore. It's about helping others find their way back to each other." The impact of their advocacy reached further than they ever anticipated. Schools invited them to speak at assemblies, community centers hosted workshops based on their principles of forgiveness and communication, and even corporations sought their advice on fostering healthier workplace relationships. Their message resonated deeply because it came from experience, not theory. They spoke not as untouchable figures of success, but as flawed human beings who had learned to embrace vulnerability. Lila remained a steadfast presence in their lives, offering wisdom and companionship whenever needed. Over time, her friendship with Harrison blossomed into something deeper. Neither of them rushed into anything. They both understood the importance of taking things slow, but there was no denying the connection they shared. On weekends, they would take long walks through the countryside or visit local markets, enjoying the simplicity of being together without pretense. One evening, as they sat by the fire sharing stories about their childhoods, Lila turned to Harrison and asked, "Do you ever think about what your life might have been like if you hadn't lost Emily, or if you hadn't found her again?" Harrison paused, considering the question carefully. "I think about it all the time," he admitted. "If I hadn't lost her, I might never have realized how much I took her for granted, and if I hadn't found her again, well, I don't even want to imagine that. Losing her taught me humility, patience, and gratitude. Finding her gave me purpose and love," Lila added gently. "Don't forget love." Harrison smiled, his gaze softening. "Yes, and love." Their bond continued to deepen, becoming a source of strength and joy for both of them. While Harrison's relationship with Emily remained his top priority, he cherished the unique connection he shared with Lila. She reminded him daily that happiness wasn't tied to material possessions. It came from meaningful relationships and the ability to give and receive love freely. Meanwhile, Rosa Alvarez celebrated her 80th birthday surrounded by loved ones, including Harrison, Emily, and Lila. The seamstress shop where it all began had become a symbol of hope and resilience. Drawing visitors from near and far, many came seeking guidance or comfort, moved by the story of the necklace that had reunited a father and daughter. Rosa welcomed them warmly, sharing her own experiences of kindness and compassion. "You've changed so many lives," Harrison told her during the birthday celebration, "including mine." Rosa chuckled, waving off the compliment. "Lives were meant to intertwine," she said. "That's how the world works. We help each other whether we realize it or not." Her words stayed with Harrison long after the party ended. He realized that their journey wasn't just about him and Emily. It was about the ripple effect of their actions. Every decision they made, every word they spoke, had the potential to inspire others to seek reconciliation in their own lives. As winter approached, Harrison and Emily decided to host another gathering at the estate, a tradition they had started, to mark the progress they'd made over the years. This time, however, they included a special ceremony, planting a tree in honor of their renewed relationship. Friends, family, and supporters gathered around as Harrison and Emily shoveled dirt onto the roots of a young oak sapling. "This tree represents growth," Emily explained, addressing the crowd. "Just like us, it will face challenges, storms, droughts, harsh winds, but it will stand tall because its foundation is strong. Our roots are in forgiveness, love, and second chances. And as long as we nurture them, we'll keep growing stronger together." Applause erupted, echoing across the grounds. Harrison hugged Emily tightly, overcome with emotion. He knew that this moment, standing side by side with his daughter, surrounded by people who cared about them, was worth more than any empire he had built. In the months that followed, Harrison began writing a follow-up to his memoir. Titled Roots of Redemption, the book delved deeper into the lessons he and Emily had learned since reuniting. He wrote candidly about the struggles they faced along the way, the moments of doubt, the arguments, the fear of falling back into old patterns, but also about the triumphs, the laughter, the shared dreams, and the unbreakable bond they had forged. The release of Roots of Redemption coincided with Emily's announcement that she would be stepping down from her role at Harrison's company to focus full-time on expanding Pathways. It was a bittersweet decision for both of them, but they supported each other wholeheartedly. "You've given me so much, Dad," Emily said. "Now it's my turn to give back, to others, and to myself." Harrison nodded, pride swelling in his chest. "I couldn't be prouder of you, sweetheart. You're doing exactly what you're meant to do." As spring returned, bringing with it fresh blooms and warmer days, Harrison reflected on the journey that had brought him here. From the moment he saw the necklace in Lila's shop to the present day, his life had been transformed by love, forgiveness, and the courage to start over. He had gone from being a man consumed by guilt and regret to someone who embraced vulnerability and connection. On a sunny afternoon, as he strolled through the gardens with Lila, Harrison stopped beneath the oak tree he and Emily had planted. Its branches stretched skyward, reaching toward the sunlight. "Look at it," he said, marveling at its growth. "It's thriving." "Just like you," Lila replied, smiling up at him. "And Emily, and everyone whose lives you've touched." Harrison wrapped an arm around her shoulders, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. For so long he had defined himself by his wealth and power. Now he knew the truth. Real legacy wasn't built on material success. It was rooted in love, compassion, and the willingness to grow. Years later, when people spoke of Harrison Kane, they didn't talk about his business empire or his vast fortune. They remembered him as a man who had dared to confront his mistakes, who had fought tirelessly to reunite with his daughter, and who had dedicated his life to spreading hope and healing. His story became a beacon of light for anyone struggling to mend broken relationships or find redemption. For Harrison, the greatest gift of all was knowing that he had done right by Emily and by himself. Together, they had proven that even the deepest wounds could heal with time, effort, and love. And in the end, that was the only measure of success that truly mattered.